Welcome to the Orchard Hard Drive. With me, your host, Michael Muto. The Orchard Hard Drive is a comedy anthology podcast with themes of horror and science fiction. And now, without further ado, here is the first story, The Doorway. Bill had moved back in with his parents a few years ago. It was a nice house in a nice small town. An old house he'd been told was built sometime in the early 20th century. Bored one night, Bill was looking in the closet that was upstairs in the house. He was looking at old books that were stored there. It wasn't big enough to really step inside or anything, just a door, and then there were shelves. Down at the bottom, Bill moved some boxes. Then something caught his eye. It almost looked like the sill of a door. He put his hand down close and there was a breeze coming through. He stepped back and looked. Was there a door behind the shelves? He tried to move the shelves, but no luck. They were nailed to the wall. Bill got on the ground and looked. There was no denying it. It was a door. No light came through though, but he could still feel that breeze. Then he thought, there was nothing on the other side of that wall. That would have been the side of the house not attached to anything. He thought maybe the house had actually been attached to another building originally that had been knocked, and this was a doorway to there. But of course now it would lead nowhere. And the breeze must be from outside. That also explained the lack of light. It's nighttime, no sun. Bill thought it was interesting, but nothing too interesting that wouldn't wait for tomorrow. He decided to ask his father about it in the morning. Maybe he'd know something. Bill headed to bed, but before he did, he passed a window. A window facing the street. On the street there were lights. But if the door was actually facing outside, wouldn't he have seen the light from the street lights through the sill of the door? A problem for tomorrow, he decided, and went to bed. The next morning, Bill bumped into his father and asked him about the door. Bill's father didn't know what he meant. Bill told him about how last night he'd found a door behind the closet. Bill's father said how he'd never noticed a door there, or why there would be a door behind the closet. Bill had to head off to work and would show him later. Hours passed and Bill arrives home. After his dinner, Bill was walking towards his room when he passed the closet again. He decided to check again to see if he was totally wrong. He opened the door and got on the ground. No, there was a door. Well, the bottom of a door anyway. He got up and started to take boxes out of the middle shelf and put them on the ground outside. Then he reached in and felt around against the back wall. At first all he could feel was wallpaper. Then he felt it. A door frame. There was a door there. He then went and cleared the shelf under the middle to see if he could feel a keyhole or anything. And yes, a keyhole. It was under the wallpaper, but there was a door there. But once again it was late, and Bill had to be up early. He put the boxes back. He'd investigate more tomorrow. Bill woke up early and started on the door. He opened the closet and got on the floor again. Nothing. No light. What was blocking it? Then it dawned on him. Why hadn't he gone outside to see? He went back into his room and got dressed, then ran down the stairs and out the door. Out now on the street, Bill looked up. Next to him was the road. There was nothing next to the house on that side. He didn't know what he thought he'd have seen. Maybe some brickwork that looked different or something, but nothing. There were probably a lot of explanations, he figured. They may have bricked it all up when this theoretical building was demolished. Bill looked at his watch. It was a bit early, but he might as well make a start heading into work as he was outside already. He looked in the window at his mother and father eating their breakfast in the kitchen and waved goodbye. While at work during lunch, Bill decided he'd look up the street on the internet to see if his idea was right that there was an old building next to his house. But so far nothing. Bill put it down to maybe he didn't have the years right, he figured his parents were wrong somehow, but anything he searched didn't seem to indicate there'd ever been another building attached. He was now more confused. After work, he walked past the side of the house where the other side of the door should be. He decided there was only one thing to do. He went upstairs, opened the closet, took out all the boxes, then took out a hammer and started to pull out the nails and remove the shelves. Then he started to peel away at the wallpaper. There it was! There was the door! He peeled and ripped, and eventually his mother called up after him to see what he was up to. Bill was a bit embarrassed, but just told her the story. She was now curious too, but after a bit more peeling, the door was fully revealed. Bill's mother called after his father to come to see what they'd found. Bill's father couldn't believe it. Where did it come from? And why was it here? Bill told them how he couldn't find anything anywhere about another building ever being attached to it. But there it was. The door stood there. The handle had been removed. The door was covered with wallpaper, before shelves nailed on. Bill bent down, looked through the keyhole. He felt the breeze against his face, but that was it. No light, nothing. Bill's mother figured maybe it was a draft coming through some cracks in the bricks, but it was up close to the other side of the door, and that's why there's no light. Made sense, thought Bill. Hang on, Bill's father said. If there's no handle, how is it locked? Good point, said Bill, who then put his finger where the handle would be and pulled the door. It was stiff. It felt like the door had become stuck somehow over time. Bill's father went to the garage for an old crowbar, then started to try and get some budge on the door. With some effort, it started to move. This was it. Bill took a breath and pushed on the crowbar. The door swung open. Bill's parents took a step back, gasping what they were seeing. A long, dark stairway. Bill had never been more confused in his life. This didn't make any sense. This should not exist. Bill's father tried to make sense of it by saying how in old houses they'd have little things they'd not use anymore or something, but none of that could bring any reason to what they were seeing. Bill decided to go down. Bill's mother told him to be careful. Bill said he'd have his phone on, with the light on to see where he was going and stay on a call with them. He turned on the light in his phone and made his way down. The steps were all bricks, and there was a railing. Looking around, the ceiling was higher than the house, it seemed. Then after a few turns on the spiral staircase, Bill rang his mother. She asked how he was. He told her everything was fine, but he couldn't see an end to it. The stairs seemed to go on into the darkness. Bill's father asked if there was anything on the walls. Nothing, Bill said. It looked like brick from the outside. The phone started to cut out, and his signal went. Bill looked up and couldn't see where the stairs had started. He figured he must be close to the bottom now, and kept walking. After what felt like an hour's walk, he felt the stairs change in materials. Then he felt like he was walking on mud. The stairs had stopped. He looked down, and he could see that, yes, it was like he was walking down a hill. No more spiral staircase, but just a straight walk forward. Eventually he could see a light. As he got closer, it was a keyhole. Bill arrived and saw it was a door. He moved his phone and with the light found the handle. He gulped and pushed down, opening the door. There was a bit of resistance, but eventually he was able to open it. It was the hallway near the front of the house. He looked up and saw the front door. There it was, looking exactly like he'd left it. He looked down and saw the doorway into the kitchen, and across from him was the living room. He stepped out and looked back at the door he came through. It wasn't the door he'd ever seen there before. He moved the door to look at it, and he could see the same paint the rest of the hallway had. There was no handle on the other side. If you closed it, you wouldn't know it was there. He called up to his parents. They replied asking what he wanted, then came running down to the bottom of the stairs. His father and mother looked in awe at the new door. They told Bill how they'd just finished talking to him, and then there was static, and how he was here. Bill told them how he'd been walking for what felt like an hour or so. He looked back at the doorway. There was nothing, just blackness. He turned on his phone's light again to see, and there was nothing for the light to fall on. It was just a black void. Bill's mother looked into the doorway and said how it was all very odd. Bill's father had an idea. He told him to wait upstairs, and he ran into the new doorway. Bill's mother called after him, but it was too late. He was gone. Bill and his mother decided to go upstairs and wait for him to appear on the other side. An hour passed. No sign. Bill's mother was worried. So was Bill. He thought he should go in after him. Would he end up in the same place? Maybe somewhere completely different. Then after an hour had passed, they heard a sound. They looked into the void, and then from the blackness appeared Bill's father. Bill and his mother hugged him. Bill's father was a bit puzzled, pointing out how he'd only been gone a few seconds. Bill's mother was crying with relief. Bill's father, still a bit puzzled, but figured he'd been gone longer than he thought, hugged her back. Bill stepped away, looking at the doorway in the closet, and wondered out loud what they could do. It's weird. Seems wrong to board it up, said Bill's father. I mean, it was interesting at the very least, but it's like a mistake. Like on every level, it's wrong. Bill's father scratched his head, then looked out the window and saw it was very late. They all decided it was going to have to be a problem for tomorrow. The next day over dinner, Bill's father said he told his friend Greg about the doors. Greg had been in construction and that he'd call around, just to see if he could make any sense of the whole thing. Bill didn't have much faith. Greg arrived half an hour later. Bill's father showed Greg the doorway in the downstairs hall, then took him upstairs to see the doorway that had started it all. "Cowboys," said Greg. "A bunch of bloody cowboys. That's what you've got here," Greg said, wagging his finger at the strange door. "Basically, what's happened is someone has come in here and tried to put in a door and stairs and realised they went nowhere." Greg reminded them how behind that wall where the closet is, there's nothing. No building, nothing. And so, when you try to put in a doorway and stairs to go nowhere, it creates a vacuum. And nature doesn't like a vacuum. And so, it has to put it somewhere. That's how you've got a doorway that leads down to the hallway. Bill scratched his head and was more confused than before. "Let me guess," said Greg. "It takes maybe roughly an hour to walk down, right? But it's only seconds for everyone else?" "Yes," said Bill's mother. "That's what I thought." "Yep, they've created a rift in space and time," said Greg. "But they should be okay." He told them they should have a professional come in and remove the door behind the closet. Then he told them it's grand in a house like this. It won't cause major damage, and should be easy enough to fix. Now, this could have been way worse. You could have an upstairs in a bungalow. That can cause major structural damage, not only to the house, but to the basic fabric of reality. My advice, said Greg, is to steer clear of this door and shut them both. "Well," said Bill's dad, "will you have a cup of tea, Greg?" Greg nodded, and they all went downstairs. Bill shut the once hidden door and the closet door. What a relief, he thought. At least that'll be sorted.